Good morning and welcome to Ayubowan, Sri Lanka. Today we have with us Ambassador Hemantha Warnakulasuriya. He is the Ambassador of Sri Lanka to Italy and President's Council. Good morning, Ambassador.
Good morning, Deepamala. Good morning.
Ambassador, just to start our discussion, would want to get an analysis of the things that has been happening after the election. Especially in that context, I want to focus on the media coverage of the election and the results. Basically, now the BBC, it actually talks about the headline is Sarath Fonseca letter to Sri Lanka Election Commission, and they quote from the letter with the headline handcuffed, and then they continue to say they were allowed to stay until after the elections, after your intervention. However, after the results were announced this morning, the guards were called back to the army police unit. When they left to report, the army police, under the orders of the head of the army police, they were arrested. And then accounts like that on other Western media channels as well. And then again, if you go to the Times Online, again the news sources is said to be AFP and AP and Transparency International. They are also, they say the article ends, Ambassador, saying that Mr. Sarath Fonseca admitted his options were limited, and within inverted commas it says, actually I might see you in the UK, he told the Times, I might need asylum there. And they also comment on the Election Commissioner's statement and quote the Election Commissioner saying, I requested to be released and I cannot bear this anymore. So this is an article on the Times Online, and there has been a lot of posts and comments on this particular blog as well. So this is some of the coverage that has been capturing. So what I want you to talk about is your account of the things happening and in connection to the
Deepamala. I was indeed surprised to note that the entire opposition camp, headed by retired General Sarath Fonseca, has left their residences and the election headquarters and moved into a 5-star hotel in Colombo, within a very close proximity to the Presidential Secretariat and the Temple Priest. Now, we have, I have been following these elections for the last 30-40 years or more. I have never come across a situation where either the sitting candidate or the opposition candidate moves and takes over entire hotel, virtually one floor of the hotel, and then starts the headquarters in that hotel. Now, this is unusual, and naturally this is suspicious. Why did General Sarath Fonseca, who had been accused by the government when he was the army commander, not accused, I mean the government suspected on very important, reliable information that they received from another country, that General Sarath Fonseca is planning a coup d'etat to take over the government. If you saw his interview, all those who saw his interview on another private channel, he was questioned on this. He did not say that I am essentially a Democrat, I would never ever think of taking over the government through a coup d'etat, that this is something that has been created by the government in order to put me to difficulty. Instead of which he said, if I want to take over the government, I would have only telephoned 4 battalions to come to Colombo. I would have taken over the government at any time. Now the answer that he gives shows a clear nexus between the information that the government received and the manner in which he was acting upon. So the government naturally was suspicious. Now, Deepamala, this is not the first time the army tried to take over the government in Sri Lanka. in 1962 and subsequently in 1967, I believe. There were two coups d'etat. In both coups, the army was behind the allegation was the army was behind this. One was the famous coup in 1962, where the Navy commander Royce de Mello and others were involved. The other army coup, the other was in 1967, where former army commander Richard Dutton was involved. But thank God, due to the intervention of the politicians at that time, Felix Bandaranaike and the others saved this country from being run by a military dictatorship. So this is not far away from the thoughts of any ruler. Now here is a army commander who was defeated, who have been responsible, one of the people who have defeated the LTT, and he claims that with proud arrogance, and that he has a huge following behind him. The government must definitely take restrictive measures, not only to protect the government, but to protect the democracy of this country. Now, with this scenario, there was this whole question of ballot papers being found, in a certain place with 28,000 ballot papers with a cross in favor of Sarath Fonseca. Then in a temple, the most unusual places, there was a cache of arms, which is enough to blow up any place. And a temple, and with Sarath Fonseca's posters, and on a intelligent tip off, the priest was taken to custody. Now, there was his speeches also said that on the 27th, I will be closing the airport, and I'll be taking over. I'll be opening the doors of Bogambara to herd number of corrupt politicians in Bogambara. Now these statements are made by a former army commander. If he was a mature politician who has dwelled in politics, he would have never said this, because this is a person with his on his right side the former Chief Justice Sarath Silva, and his left former leader of the opposition Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe proclaims that they want to establish good governance. Did they ever ponder and ask themselves, can there be any good governance of remanding people or taking people to Bogambara without a court order? Only the court can give directions. So the people have to be arrested. People have to has to be taken to before court, and there is a procedure that has to take place. But so therefore these are extrajudicial methods of incarcerating people, which is known into a tin pot dictator. So it is therefore with this background and statements he has made calling people adversely Kalavedda, polecats and various other names, there was certain amount of fear. Now in addition to that, Deepamala now as a reasonable, prudent lady, and I am asking the audience, as a reasonable, prudent people, can you give one explanation which has not come from them, why they decided to go in with not number of deserters and their security into the army, into this hotel? The obvious answer to this is that they were expecting a very thin victory for President Mahinda Rajapaksa. They thought the victory will be 50.1% or 51% or vice versa. And moment if there was in the results would have taken long time to run out. If there was a very close gap, then they would, and if they feared that with the other results that the gap might increase, there was a possibility that they were planning to take over the presidential secretariat and the temple trees.
That is, if the gap was small.
No, if the gap was small, or if in the event of someone winning with a small majority, then this whole question of rigging the elections, unfair election, this is another scenario. They have all planned for this. In fact, very few people know when they found these 28,000 ballot boxes, ballots long before the elections. This is also printed ballot, not the ballot paper. They printed a sample of the ballot paper and and put a cross, against Sarath Fonseca's name.